So the Russian Ministry of Defense announced today that it had destroyed 4 Bradley fighting vehicles in Ukraine, which comes as a surprise to everyone considering there are no Bradley fighting vehicles currently in Ukraine. The announcement that they will be transferred to Ukraine just came in the last couple days. So the fact that Russia is saying that is either just preemptive propaganda or it was supposed to be released later and it was pre-filmed. This is complete nonsense. Not sure why they're doing this. Probably to try to alleviate the fears of troops who know the Bradley fighting vehicle as a fierce battlefield weapon. It proved itself in the Gulf War when the Bradley fighting vehicle actually killed more Soviet-era tanks, T-72s, which are currently on the battlefield in Ukraine. The Bradley fighting vehicle killed more former Soviet tanks or former Russian tanks than the M1 Abrams main battle tank did in the Gulf War. And this is largely because the Bradley's 2 main weapon systems, the 25mm Bushmaster gun as well as the TOW missile pods it has, can outrange the Soviet tanks. The 25mm gun on the front of the Bradley is about the same as the main battle as the T-72 or some of the other Russian tanks that you would see on the battlefield. But the TOW missile system that's on the Bradley has a 4,500 meter range. That outranges the Soviets and Russian era tanks in Ukraine by 1,500 meters. So that's a significant and devastating effect that these Bradleys can have when it comes to the turning of the tides in favor of a more offensive Ukraine going forward. In addition to this, these tracked vehicles, these Bradley fighting vehicles, can carry 9 troops in there, probably more, but they're designed to carry 9. And that means that squads can rapidly deploy, engage, fight, use the cover of the Bradley and its reactive armor, get back in and get out of there before any kind of heavy weaponry or artillery come. It's an effective way to fight when you have a inferior military, and by inferior I mean in all aspects. They're lesser trained in Russia, they're worse equipped, and so this is going to be a very effective weapon. You're going to see infantry level tactics being able to take on Russian tanks and effectively destroy them, deploy troops, kill the infantry surrounding the tanks, and then get back in and leave before any artillery comes in or anything. It's going to be so effective for them. And it's somewhat of a compromise for the Ukrainians. I know the Ukrainians have been demanding Abrams tanks. They've been wanting Leopard tanks, and we've heard the Germans hem and haw about whether they're going to give them, and then they said they're not going to give them, and then they said they're not going to allow Poland to give them, despite the fact that they belong to Poland, and despite the fact that Poland was going to give 28 Leopard tanks to Ukraine, and just suddenly the U.S. was going to give Poland 28 Abrams tanks to just train on. You know, I mean, we can play games too here, Russia. So the reality is that's all still up in the air. But in the meantime, I think the Bradley may actually be a more effective piece of equipment for the Ukrainians because of its ability to kill tanks, transport troops, and have an effective main gun on the front. And it also has that 7.62 millimeter coax gun, which is super effective against any kind of light vehicles or troops on the ground. So super happy they're getting the Bradley, and Russia is not happy about this at all, to the point where they've already said that they've killed 4 of them. So complete nonsense, but Russia's trying to do what it does to make sure that its populace doesn't continue to spiral into what the fuck are we doing. So that's that.